The thing about being a mechanic is, nobody expects you to own anything but greasy hands, stained jeans, and a stubborn loyalty to vehicles that aren't even yours. Apparently, that included my own parents. It started at a funeral. Not a dramatic one, no lightning, no organ wailing. Just a quiet Tuesday in June when we buried my grandfather, Walter Eugene Miller, aged 92. A man who lived through wars, recessions, and 6 decades of fixing things himself, including relationships, when people gave him the chance. He wasn't fancy. He didn't have a degree. He had a craftsman toolbox older than my dad and a spine made of drywall screws and spit. The kind of guy who used duct tape as a love language. My kind of man. I showed up in a clean button-down and black slacks, still faintly smelling like motor oil. I'd come straight from the shop, after adjusting a customer's timing belt and breaking up a slap fight between 2 junior techs arguing over who used the last of the brake cleaner. My brother Ryan, meanwhile, arrived in a navy blue tailored suit and loafers so shiny you could probably signal the Coast Guard with them. He had gelled hair, a Rolex he definitely didn't buy himself, and sunglasses perched on his head like a Wall Street falcon. He hugged Mom with 2 hands and kissed her cheek like he was posing for a Hallmark movie called The Grieving Son Who Has an MBA. Spoiler alert, he didn't. After the service, the family trickled back to my parents' house. 2-story colonial, white siding, porch swing that's been squeaking since the Obama administration. The same house where Grandpa taught me how to change a tire at age 10 and where I once got grounded for fixing the lawnmower better than my dad could. I tried to play it cool. Ate my potato salad, dodged Aunt Linda's questions about whether I was dating anyone interesting or just more carburetors, and tried to blend into the wallpaper like I always did. But then I heard them, my parents, in the kitchen, talking like they were the stars of a soap opera. "It's done," my mom whispered, voice tight. "Just in time," Dad replied. "I didn't want the will reading dragging things out. And Ryan's been waiting to hear about the house." I blinked. The house? Not this one. Grandpa's. The one with the stone chimney he built himself, and the wooden shed that smelled like sawdust and whiskey. The place he'd called home for 50 years, and where I'd spent half my childhood watching old westerns and sorting nuts and bolts in jars. And suddenly, I knew. I waited 2 days for the will reading, but no invite came. So I called the lawyer myself. He confirmed it. Everything had gone to Ryan. The house. The savings. The land. Even Grandpa's battered old 1955 pickup truck, which I'd spent 6 months helping him restore. I got nothing. Not even the ceramic coffee mug that said, "World's okayest Grandpa," which I'd given him for laughs but he used every single morning. I didn't yell. I didn't call them. I got in my truck and drove to my parents' house. Dad answered the door, eyebrows raised. "Mike? What's going on?" "You changed the will," I said. Calm. Steady. But my stomach was tight enough to snap steel. His face didn't change. Not a blink. "Of course we did," he said like it was obvious. "Ryan's the one with ambition. He's applying to grad school again this fall. He needs the house. Ryan's been applying to grad school since Netflix mailed DVDs." I snapped. "He has potential," Dad said simply. You're just a mechanic." There it was. Not, "You're our son." Not, "You've worked hard." Just a mechanic. I felt my chest tighten, but I smiled. I actually smiled. It's funny how grief can turn into clarity in less than 10 words. "Right," I said. "Thanks for clearing that up." And I left. 3 months later, I bought their house in cash. They didn't know it was me, not until the eviction letter showed up in their mailbox, sandwiched between a coupon for Olive Garden and a postcard from Ryan's networking retreat in Costa Rica. This was going to be fun. I wasn't surprised that Ryan got everything. Not really. I was just surprised they didn't even have the decency to pretend I mattered. It wasn't always this bad. I mean, growing up, we were like any other 2 brothers separated by 3 years and a galaxy of parental bias. Ryan was the golden child. From day one. He had the dimples, the piano lessons, The birthday parties with pony rides and bounce castles. He was the kind of kid who got applauded for not choking on his grape juice. Me? I was the backup plan. I got leftover, everything, clothes, attention, expectations. My birthdays were usually held in the garage. One year, my mom forgot until lunchtime and stuck a candle in a toaster waffle. They said Ryan was gifted. Brilliant. He's going to do great things, Dad used to say, clapping him on the back like he was already curing diseases. This one's gonna change the world. And me? He's got good hands, Grandpa used to say. Sturdy hands? Like mine. That was the first time I ever felt proud of something. Grandpa saw me in a way my parents never bothered to. When Ryan was getting trophies for things like Best Collaborative Effort in middle school debate club, I was in the garage, handing Grandpa wrenches, learning what a carburetor was, how to bleed a brake line, how to fix things no one else knew how to fix. Smart isn't always books and suits, he'd say, wiping his hands on a rag. Sometimes it's knowing how things work. By 14, I could tear down and rebuild a lawnmower engine faster than most grown men. By 16, I rebuilt the transmission on Grandpa's old '55 Chevy while my dad stood 3 feet away and said, "Don't mess it up. That truck's worth more than your GPA." I didn't mess it up. But I didn't get a thank you either. Ryan went to college. Changed majors 4 times in 3 years. Political science, then marketing, then philosophy, and finally something called strategic innovation, which I'm still convinced he made up to justify doing nothing for a living. They paid for all of it. Every book, every dorm, every Starbucks gift card. When I asked if they could help cover trade school tuition, my dad laughed. "Mike, you're going to be elbow deep in engines the rest of your life. You don't need a degree for that. Just get a job." So I did. I got a job. Then 2. Then started my own shop by 23 with a loan Grandpa co-signed for. He said, "You've earned this. Don't let anyone make you feel like you haven't." It was the only time I saw my dad jealous, when I opened that shop and Grandpa came to the ribbon cutting with a grin so big it looked like he'd won the lottery. After that, I stopped hoping for approval. But that didn't mean it didn't sting. Especially now, knowing the house, the one place I'd ever felt seen, had gone to Ryan. The photos were gone. The trophies boxed. And Ryan was already calling it a blank slate for future investment. He posted a photo 2 days after the will reading, standing in front of Grandpa's house with the caption, "New chapter. #entrepreneur moves #property game." It made me sick. But I didn't comment. Didn't call. Didn't reply to Mom's half-hearted text that said, "Hope you're doing okay, sweetie. Ryan says you seemed upset?" Upset? I was tired. Tired of being invisible. Tired of being just a mechanic. So I decided to do what I do best. Work in silence. And wait. If there's one thing Ryan loves more than being the center of attention, it's being the center of his own success story, even when someone else built the plot. Within a week of inheriting Grandpa's house, he was giving interviews. I'm not even kidding. He started a TikTok account called That Flip with Ryan. First post? A shaky vertical video of him walking up to Grandpa's porch in suede loafers with that motivational entrepreneur background music playing. "Hey guys, follow me on my journey as I turn this neglected family property into a modern, money-making machine. #grindset #legacy builder." Neglected? The man mowed the lawn with scissors when the trimmer broke. I nearly threw my phone across the shop. But I didn't. I just hit mute. Ryan's version of renovating was painting over perfectly good wood paneling, removing Grandpa's cast iron stove because it was too rustic, and converting the old workshop into what he called a content studio. "Big things coming," he wrote in another caption, posing in front of the busted fence he hadn't fixed yet. "We don't just renovate homes, we renovate legacies." I couldn't tell if he was marketing a house or opening a cult. Meanwhile, I was doing oil changes, brake replacements, and trying not to combust every time one of our mutual cousins tagged me in one of his posts like, "Look what Ryan's doing now! So inspiring!" Oh, you mean the guy who inherited property, money, and a garage full of tools he couldn't identify with a cheat sheet? Inspiring indeed. But I stayed quiet. I'd spent too many years shouting into the void with nothing echoing back. So now? I let my silence grow teeth. I focused on work. Took on more clients. Landed a new contract with a local towing company that tripled our revenue in a month. Started putting real money away, more than just savings. Something deliberate. Focused. Quiet. Because here's the thing about people like Ryan, they think life is a performance. They spend so much time talking, they never see the guy in the background tightening the bolts on something that actually moves. Then, one afternoon, I saw the real estate listing. I wasn't even looking for it. It just popped up in a group chat I'm in with a couple local business owners. My parents were selling their house. The one I grew up in. The one with the creaky floors, the backyard swing set they never took down, the wall in the hallway with mine and Ryan's height measured in faded pencil marks, though his line always had a star next to it, and mine didn't. Asking price? Reasonable. Photos? Staged to death. I barely recognized it under the new light fixtures and fake fruit bowls. I blinked. Then I smiled. See, my parents never said they were moving. They didn't tell me about the listing. No call. No message. Nothing. But now I had the missing puzzle piece. They needed money. Badly enough to sell the house they'd lived in for 30 years. And as fate would have it, I had just enough tucked away to buy it. In cash. But I didn't message the agent. Not yet. First, I drove past the place. Just once. Just to see if it still made me feel like I was 12 years old and invisible. It didn't. It felt like the beginning of something they'd never see coming. The first time I ever held a wrench, I was 6 years old and missing a front tooth. Grandpa handed it to me like it was a sword, told me we were going to resurrect the riding mower. I didn't know what that meant, but I nodded like I did. He showed me how to listen, not just to engines, but to people. Most folks tell you what they think you want to hear, he'd said, peering under the hood. Machines don't do that. They tell the truth. Screeching belts? Loose bolt. Knock in the engine? Timing issue. No lies. Just signals. That was the kind of man he was. And now here I was, decades later, fixing other people's engines while watching my family fall apart from across a digital battlefield. Grandpa had always worried about what would happen when he was gone. Not about money. About us. The way Dad dismissed anything that didn't come with a necktie. The way Mom pretended her selective concern was love. The way Ryan walked through life like it was an airport lounge and everyone else was there to serve him mini muffins. But even knowing all that, I never thought they'd rewrite the will without blinking. Still, I didn't rage. I planned. The house listing stayed up for weeks. No bites. The market was cooling down, and the price was clearly optimistic. I kept tabs quietly. Realtor's name was Susan. Pleasant voice. Like to say, cozy instead of small. One day I called, from a different number. Told her I was looking for a private purchase. All cash. No need for showings or long negotiations. Just needed her to keep the seller unaware of the buyer's identity until closing. She didn't bat an eye. That happens more than you'd think. Of course it does. I didn't give her my name. Used my business LLC instead. The paperwork was easy. I'd kept things clean over the years, built good credit, and now had a financial cushion thick enough to make the move without blinking. But before I signed anything, I needed to be sure. So I visited the house again, this time late at night. I parked a few doors down, walked up the old sidewalk, and stood at the edge of the lawn. Lights were on. Voices inside. Laughter. Probably some old family friend dropping by. The sound of forks against plates. Music playing softly. And for a moment, I felt something sharp in my chest. Not regret. Grief. Because I'd spent 28 years thinking that if I just worked hard enough, just kept my head down, fixed what was broken, stayed reliable, maybe, I'd eventually be invited to the table. Turns out, I was only ever meant to fix the chairs. I walked back to my truck, sat there for 10 full minutes, and stared at the contract on my passenger seat. Buying that house wasn't revenge. It was closure. It was me finally taking something back that I should have never been pushed out of. Back at the shop, I worked like a man on a mission. Picked up weekend hours. Said yes to every late-night call, every busted radiator, every "Can you squeeze me in?" favor from the regulars. I was already close, but I wanted this done my way, no loans. No credit. Just me, my hands, and the money they said I'd never earn with them. The day I signed the final paperwork, Susan sent a digital congratulation message with a stock photo of a smiling couple holding a giant key. I deleted it. Instead, I went to the backyard of my rented apartment, cracked open a beer, and watched the sun dip behind the trees while Bruno, the stray mutt I adopted from the gas station, chewed on an old tire like it owed him money. It was done. The house was mine. They didn't know yet. But they would. Soon. 2 weeks after I signed the final papers, Susan called again. "They're out," she said. "Keys were handed over this morning." Just like that. 3 decades of family dinners, mismatched furniture, and passive-aggressive birthday banners gone. Packed into a moving truck and hauled off to whatever overpriced condo complex my parents were retreating to. I didn't feel triumphant. Not yet. It felt surgical. Cold. Like tightening the final bolt on an engine you just rebuilt. Not exciting, but final. Clean. That house was mine now. Legally. Officially. Silently. I hadn't stepped inside since the closing. I wanted to wait until the dust, and their perfume, had cleared. But I did drive past once, just to confirm the mailbox had my name on it. It did. Mike Carson. No junior, no. Ryan's brother. Just me? Then the text started. At first, it was a group message. Sent from my dad. "Dad. Hey boys, heads up, we had to sell the house. Downsizing. Nothing dramatic. Just simplifying. Ryan. All good. Let me know if you need help moving stuff to storage." Me, no reply. I stared at it for a while. No mention of why they sold. No apology. No acknowledgement that they'd getted my inheritance and handed it over to a man who couldn't tell the difference between a crescent wrench and a wine key. Then came another message, this time, just to me. "Mom. Hi honey. Hope everything's going well. Just wanted to let you know we're moving closer to the city. Condo life for us, smiley face. Maybe we can grab lunch sometime?" Lunch. As if nothing happened. As if she didn't erase me from Grandpa's legacy with the swipe of a pen and a smile. I didn't respond. But I did walk through the house that night. Alone. No furniture. No echoes of footsteps. Just the creak of old floorboards and the faded pencil marks still on the hallway wall, the ones tracking our heights through childhood. My name was still there. Ryan's was too. His had a star next to it. Mine didn't. I ran my thumb over the spot, then went upstairs to the bedroom I grew up in. It still had the same chipped molding. Same closet door that stuck halfway through closing. I stood in the center and looked out the window. The view hadn't changed. But I had. Back downstairs, I opened the kitchen cabinets, half expecting to find one of Mom's ancient casserole dishes or a rogue Tupperware lid that never fit anything. But everything was gone. Almost. There, shoved in the back of the junk drawer, was a pack of AA batteries and a dusty envelope labeled "Property Tax, 2012. I laughed. Loud enough to scare myself. It wasn't about the taxes. It was the handwriting. It was Mom's. The same tidy cursive she used to write birthday cards, the ones that got more generic as I got older. That's when it really hit me. They never thought I'd have anything. Not a house. Not a future. Not a backbone. That was their mistake. And I was about to correct it. The eviction notice was drafted the next morning. Not because I wanted to be cruel. Because I wanted them to see me, in black ink and legal font. I sent it certified mail. 2 signatures required. 1 for Mom. 1 for Dad. 3 days later, Susan called again. She was trying not to laugh. They called? She said. Your parents? Yeah? They asked if there'd been a clerical error. They said the name on the buyer documents looked familiar, but they assumed it was coincidence. I grinned. What did you tell them? I told them to read the notice again. That evening, I poured myself a drink, opened the window, and waited. It wouldn't be long now. The phone rang at 6:42 p.m. I was midway through replacing the front axle on a Jeep when I saw the name flash across my screen, Mom. For a second, I debated answering. I didn't. A minute later, voicemail. Her voice shaky but coated in her usual "everything's fine" tone. Sweetheart, we just got some odd paperwork about the house. We think there's been a mix-up. Please call us back, okay? The kicker? She still ended it with, "Love you." I set the phone down and went back to work. The next day, Dad called. 3 times. No voicemail. Just rapid back-to-back calls like I'd somehow beguiled a nuclear launch. Then came a text from Ryan. Ryan, what the hell's going on with the house? Mom's freaking out. Ryan again. Some guy bought it? They're saying it's you? Is that true? Ryan again. Bro. What? I didn't answer. Instead, I forwarded the eviction notice to their condo complex, just in case they tried to claim they never received it. The new address was conveniently public, thanks to Ryan's latest post. Starting our next chapter in the city. Views, vibes, and vertical living. #condo life, #elevator era. His timing was immaculate. So was mine. 3 days after that, I pulled into the driveway of the house I now legally owned, their old house, and found Dad standing there, arms crossed, looking like he was trying to command the sun to set faster. Let's talk, he said before I even got out of the truck. I stepped out slowly, wiped my hands on a shop rag, and met him halfway. This isn't funny, Mike, he said. This feels like a stunt. A stunt? I raised an eyebrow. Like changing grandpa's will behind everyone's back. He flinched. Just a little. We did what was best for the family. He muttered. No, I said. You did what was best for Ryan. There's a difference. He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I don't know what point you're trying to make with all this, he said. But this is unnecessary. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. Because that's what it always came down to, didn't it? Not fairness. Not honesty. Image. You ever think about why you're so embarrassed? I asked. Because it's not the situation. It's that people are finally seeing who you really are. Mike, for God's sake. No. I cut in. You made your choice. You told me I was just a mechanic while handing everything to the guy who's never built a damn thing in his life. And now you're shocked that I actually built something? He looked away. Behind him, Mom stepped out of the car. She looked smaller somehow. Less coiffed. Less sure. Michael. She started, eyes pleading. We didn't know. We didn't think. You didn't think I was capable. I finished. Silence. That heavy, sticky silence that only happens when people run out of excuses. I turned, walked to the front door, unlocked it, and stepped inside without inviting them in. Their house. My house. It smelled different now. Cleaner. Like fresh paint and endings. I didn't slam the door behind me. I just let it click shut. 10 minutes later, I watched from the upstairs window as they drove off. Slowly. No tantrums. No yelling. Just retreat. That night, Ryan posted a black square on Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes family is just a 6-letter word." I didn't laugh. But I might have smiled. It took them 3 days to regroup. 3 days of silence. Then, on a Friday afternoon, I pulled into the shop and found Ryan waiting. In loafers. In the middle of a parking lot covered in gravel, oil stains, and the occasional tire iron. Mike, he called out, arms wide like he was greeting a long-lost relative on a cruise ship. I got out slowly, tossed my work gloves on the dash. What do you want? I just want to talk. He was sweating through his pressed shirt. Hair perfectly styled but wilting in the heat. A man used to air conditioning and affirmation. Then talk. Look, he started, pacing like a TED Talk with no audience. We can't afford to move again. The deposit on the condo was half of what they had. I'm trying to get Mom and Dad stabilized. The optics of this whole thing are a mess. I blinked. The optics? I mean, it looks bad, he said, waving his hands. People are asking questions. Uncle Ray thinks you're taking revenge or something. I raised an eyebrow. Is that not accurate? He didn't answer. Instead, he lowered his voice. You know they're not built for this. Dad's pride won't let him admit it, but they're panicking. They thought they were selling to a developer. Not you. That's the point. He finally looked me in the eyes. Really looked. I didn't know they cut you out of the will, he said more quietly. I found out after. I assumed Grandpa left the house to me because I was already managing the estate stuff. I didn't ask for it. Didn't stop you from posting about it, I said. He winced. Yeah. That was dumb. He kicked at a rock with his $1,000 shoe and sighed. So now what? He asked. You just evict them? End of story? I crossed my arms. Why shouldn't I? Because you're better than that, he said, voice rising. Aren't you always saying that? That you don't hold grudges? That you're the mature one? I let that sit for a moment. Then said, maybe I got tired of being mature while everyone else played Monopoly with my life. He stepped back, jaw tight. This isn't justice, he snapped. It's petty. Maybe. I shrugged. But so was rewriting Grandpa's will and pretending I didn't exist. He looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't have anything left. Instead, he pulled a folded envelope from his jacket. They asked me to give you this. Inside was a handwritten note from Dad. Sloppy, rushed. Like someone halfway through admitting something they couldn't say out loud. Michael. We made mistakes. We underestimated you. We shouldn't have. If there's a way to fix this, I'm listening. Dad? That was it. No, sorry. No acknowledgement of what exactly they did. Just an opening. An invitation to forgive and forget. But I wasn't in the business of forgetting anymore. I folded the note, handed it back to Ryan. Tell him this, I said. Tell him I'm not looking for revenge. I'm just done playing a role in a story they wrote without me. Ryan stared at me for a beat. You've changed, he muttered. I nodded. No. I just stopped trying to impress people who were never watching. He turned and walked back to his car, quieter than I'd ever seen him. And I went back inside and got under a '93 Ford with a busted suspension. Because some of us fix what's broken. Some of us pretend we never broke it in the first place. 2 weeks after Ryan's little parking lot meltdown, I finally hosted a cookout at the house. Not a big one. Just some friends from the shop, Joe from the tire supplier, and Daryl, who once rebuilt an entire transmission with a hangover and half a socket set. Bruno was there too, napping under the porch like he was in retirement. The grill was old. Probably hadn't been used since 2007. I cleaned it up, lit it, and stood there flipping burgers like nothing had changed. Except everything had. No one talked about the eviction. Nobody needed to. The guys knew. The town knew. Hell, I'm pretty sure the woman at the DMV knew because she smiled a little too knowingly when I changed the house's address on my license. Mike Carson, the one they always said would just work with his hands, now owned the house his parents raised him in. And paid for it in cash. Not from luck. Not from inheritance. But from work. Hard, quiet, thankless work. And now? I had something no one could take from me. Not with words, paperwork, or rewrites. After everyone left, I walked through the house slowly. Upstairs, I found a shoebox in the back of the closet labeled junk, toss later. Inside were photos. Me and Ryan as kids. A few of us with Grandpa. One of me standing next to my first car, grinning like an idiot with a wrench in one hand and a busted carburetor in the other. On the back, in Grandpa's scratchy handwriting. He's got it. Just watch. I stared at it for a long time. Then I framed it. Hung it next to the front door, the same door Dad used to slam on his way out whenever I mentioned quitting my job to start the shop. The same door they walked through the day they left, still believing I'd stay small. The next week, I ran into them at the grocery store. They were in the canned goods aisle. I was grabbing pasta. We made eye contact. Dad looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't. Just gave a nod. Not approval. Not affection. Just acknowledgement. It was more than I'd ever gotten before. Mom half smiled like she might cry but also might ask where the bathroom was. They looked older. Smaller. I nodded back. Didn't say a word. Later that night, I went up into the attic. One last time. There was still a mess of boxes, dust, and memories, but I wasn't looking for anything specific. I just wanted to sit. So I did, right on the old wooden floor where Grandpa once taught me how to strip a wire with nothing but a penknife and stubbornness. There was no dramatic wind or glowing light. Just the creak of wood, the hum of the old ceiling fan, and the silence that only comes when there's nothing left to prove. I pulled out a pen and grabbed a scrap of paper from an open box. On it I wrote, "Not bad for just a mechanic." Then I folded it up and slid it into the rafters. My final message to the house. To the past. To the kid who used to wonder if he'd ever be seen. Downstairs, Bruno barked once at a squirrel, then flopped over like he just saved the kingdom. I stepped out onto the porch and watched the last bit of daylight slip behind the trees. Same view I'd looked at growing up, wondering where I'd go. Now, I wasn't going anywhere. This house was mine. And for the first time ever, I didn't have to raise my voice to be heard.